Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Blitz football radio show presented by Two Hats Ranch. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you as we gear up for round 2 of the NCAA Division II football playoffs this Saturday. The nation's top-ranked Bulldogs hosting the Ashland Eagles, a former GLIAC opponent. And Sandy, the Bulldogs coming off a huge win over Northwood, 65-14 here in the first round.
Yeah, what an impressive way to open the NCAA Division II playoffs. And, the Bulldogs really had a lot of things clicking on all cylinders. And I think one of the questions before that game during the media availability last week was, about getting off to a better start. And now, first of all, you have to look at it and say, we played two teams that have, traditionally played us tough and two coaching staffs that know us really well. And so give credit to two opponents that played really good games. And so you got to give credit to that. However, coming into the game against Northwood, I think the Bulldogs, we saw, Rob, just come out really with a focused effort right off the bat in pretty much all three phases of the game and really got that good start and set a tone right off the bat that they carried through from start to finish.
We've seen this from the Bulldogs in the playoffs in recent years. Obviously, a couple games that were close here at the end of the regular season, but they've turned it up another notch in the playoffs, and we saw them do that last Saturday.
Yeah, I think it was very impressive to see that. And I think, getting out to practice that week, I think you could kind of see really a business-like approach, I think, for the team and a really focused effort. And, of course, we're getting some guys back that were maybe banged up during the season and getting a chance to get back into the lineup. And I think, one Jalen Jones, I think in particular, was one guy that not only got back in the lineup, but had a big play, a big pick six in that contest as well. And so I think the Bulldogs hope and believe, and certainly through one game, it looks like the Bulldogs have come in and really taken that next step and really gotten into that playoff groove that we've seen in past years.
Of course, the Bulldogs win and move on here in the Division II playoffs. They'll take on a former conference opponent, Ashland University, a team we've seen in non-conference action as well, and a team that traditionally has been very, very strong on the defensive side of the football.
I mean, a really good program. And over the years, we've seen it going back to the times when the days when they were in the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference before they left for the GMAC. And then they really carried that tradition on into the GMAC, where they've been continue to have been not only a conference championship contender, but also a team that stands prominently in the region and in the nation. And so nothing's really changed in that regard from Ashland. Ashland, very, very good defensive team. And so it's going to be a good challenge, I think, for Ferris State going from Northwood to this Ashland team. And so we know Ashland's going to play hard. They're going to play smart. They've had a chance to see Ferris State, during the last few years. And so, there's really not a lot of secrets when there's a lot of crossover games between the two leagues. You get to see a lot of film. And so it should be a really good challenge for Ferris State.
Of course, the Eagles had an impressive win in their own right, 32-7 over Minnesota Duluth in the first round. And we had a couple matchups of Northern Sun teams, great Midwest Athletic Conference teams, and they were one of the GMAC teams that got a big win in round 1.
Yeah, and I think that was probably, I don't know if anybody was necessarily surprised that Ashland won that game, but I think the strong way that Ashland won that game, I believe Duluth went up 7-0 in that contest, and then it was pretty much all Ashland from there on. And so Ashland got it done on both sides of the ball and really got their offense going as well. And we know their defense is really tough. And so that was probably one of the most impressive wins in what was really a great first weekend of NCAA Division II playoff football.
Of course, had 32 teams in the Division II playoffs, down to 16 teams now as we hit the regional semifinals. The winner of Saturday's game will move on to the regional championship game, which would also be hosted by Ferris State if the Bulldogs are fortunate enough to get a win here on Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully the weather stays away. We have another good crowd. Had a great crowd last Saturday for the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, it was really good. And I think sometimes things work out in a way that's really good. And, we had a chance to play Northwood, which is just a little over an hour's drive away from Big Rapids. And so obviously Northwood brought a lot of fans, and Ferris State had a lot of fans too, a lot of students that came out and supported. And so ended up with a really good crowd on a weather day that ended up probably better than I think some people expected. And so we're hoping for the same coming up on this Thanksgiving weekend. And hopefully we get a good turnout for what traditionally the Ferris State Ashland game has been a really good game.
Of course, whether or not playoff football, you got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. And the Bulldogs did that, ran for over 400 yards against Northwood. And that'll be important, again, here against Ashland, a very strong defensive front with two of the top defensive ends in the country.
Yeah, it's going to be a good test for the offensive line, the Nasty Boys. They did a great job in that game last week against Northwood, really controlled the line of scrimmage right from the start. And so I think the test is going to be a little bit greater for the Bulldogs in this one. You mentioned Ashland, really good front group there on that defensive line that's going to certainly present some challenges. But we know the Bulldogs in the playoffs, they really want to establish that running game. And they bring that running game at you from a lot of different perspectives, with the slots, with the H-back, with the traditional running back, and obviously with the quarterback. So we know that the Bulldogs want to get that running game established early. That's the thing that opens up the rest of the offense to give the Bulldogs an opportunity to be really diverse in its attack.
Of course, Ferris State and Ashland Saturday, a 1:02 p.m. kickoff once again on ESPN+. We'll have the coverage for you right here on Sunny 97.3 and the Bulldog Sports Network. Online coverage at ferrisstatebulldogs.com. Also going to be on 96.1 The Game in Grand Rapids. So a lot of different ways in which to follow Bulldog football. If you can't be there on Saturday, we're hoping fans can be there. Free parking for this playoff game, and tickets are on sale. ferrisstatebulldogs.com/tickets. One of only a few opportunities, maybe the last one, depending on how it goes, to watch the Bulldogs in action here at Top Taggart Field.
Yeah, and what a great value. An opportunity to see the top team in the nation in Division II, 3 national championships for this team in 4 seasons, and coming into this season with a bullseye on its back, and they've been able to respond throughout this season. And so it's a great opportunity, I think, for the fans, to come out and support. And after you get some Thanksgiving turkey and on Thursday, and spend a little time with the family on Friday, maybe do some Black Friday shopping. And hey, what better way to help close out your weekend than to come out and support the Bulldogs at Top Taggart Field?
Of course, kind of became a tradition here. 11 consecutive trips to the NCAA Division II playoffs. I think all but one of them back in 2023. The Bulldogs have been playing here on Thanksgiving weekend.
And that's certainly fun for the Bulldogs to do that. We've certainly. I remember we had the road trip to Kansas to play Fort Hays State, and that was certainly an interesting way to spend Thanksgiving. But I tell you what, it was fun to get a big win. That was a great performance in that game that the Bulldogs had there for sure. But you know what, it's become kind of a tradition. I don't know if it's certainly not as long a standing tradition as the Lions playing on Thanksgiving Day, but it's certainly become a great tradition for us and a badge of honor. And it's something that you have to earn to have the right to play on Thanksgiving weekend.
Of course, the Bulldogs last year put up 78 points in that first round win over Central Oklahoma. They came back and continued the impressive play throughout the Division II playoffs. We'll see if they can do that again. Going to face a tough challenge here in Ashland University, a team that is 10-2 coming in to face the 12-0 Bulldogs, and a program. These two programs know each other very well.
They know each other very well. Not a lot of secrets between these two programs, and these are two coaching staffs that were probably in their offices Saturday, gathering together film, breaking down film, and trying to find the strengths and weaknesses of the opponent. And so we know that these are going to be two well-prepared teams with great coaching staffs and coaching staffs that have a lot of respect for each other. And so, it's just going to be a matter of, coming out and really executing the game plan that the coaches put forward for you. And in a win-or-go-home situation like we have in the playoffs, you have to be prepared, because if you slip up a little bit, and we heard Coach Anise say that last week after practice on last Wednesday during media availability, that if you slip up or you're not at your best, you can get knocked out and your season can end early.
Of course, you mentioned the respect between the two coaching staffs. Doug Geiser, the head coach at Ashland, has done a great job here in the last 3 years or so of taking over for Lee Owens, who really kind of reestablished that Ashland University football program. And then on the defensive side, the defensive coordinator, Tim Rose, has been there forever. And I think you listen to Coach Anise, maybe the one guy that always has something for him, and probably has done a better job than anyone of trying to slow down the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I don't know that there are many coordinator names that come up with Coach Anise more than this one. And there's some good coordinators that we play throughout the season, and we heard him, a little coordinator talk from Coach going into, I just think in particular, going into Davenport, obviously we know A.J. McEwen going into Northwood last week, and then coming this week, I'm sure he's going to say that about Ashland again. And so that shows you the respect that they have for the coaching staff, for the depth of the coaching staff, and really the ability of that coaching staff to really rally their team and to execute and play good fundamental football.
Of course, we'll talk more about the matchup here today on the Bulldog Blitz Football Radio Show. Big thanks to Explore Big Rapids and the Mecosta County Visitors Bureau for helping sponsor this playoff run here for the Ferris State Bulldogs. We'll have more of the Bulldog Blitz Football Radio Show presented by Two Hats Ranch after this timeout here on the Bulldog Sports Network. And welcome back, everyone, to the Bulldog Blitz Football Radio Show, presented by Two Hats Ranch. Thanks to Explore Big Rapids, as well as Fox Motors of Cadillac and Reed City. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you as we gear up for round 2 of the NCAA Division II football playoffs this Saturday. The Bulldogs hosting the Ashland Eagles at Top Taggart Field. And, of course, going back to that win over Northwood in round 1, an impressive start for the Bulldogs. Jumped in front early, 14-0. Made a couple big plays defensively in terms of getting the pick 6 from Jalen Jones. They had a fumble that was recovered by Tim Allen down inside the 5, so really did it in all 3 phases of the football game.
Yeah, and I think you had a feel that the Bulldogs were kind of getting into that playoff mindset for that game. And it really started early offensively, I think, offensively and defensively on both lines of scrimmage. I thought both the offensive line and the defensive line really set the tone and controlled the line. And in college football, many times when you if you can control both lines of scrimmage, you're almost certainly going to win the game. And that's what the Bulldog lines did. And they really set the tone. And you saw with Tim Allen and Stanley Lambert, I mean, they were putting tremendous pressure, but they can only do that because the tackles are doing their job. The linebackers are doing their job. The secondary is doing its job. On the offensive line, when the Nasty Boys really got it going, they were setting the tone. They were doing a good job of pass blocking. But obviously, the Bulldogs came in with a game plan to run the football, and they executed that very well.
Of course, Ferris stayed off to a quick start in that football game. Controlled play really from start to finish. We got to give credit to Northwood. What a season the Timberwolves had, making their first playoff appearance since 2006, and a program that is certainly headed in the right direction.
Yeah, 100% I believe is headed in the right direction. And, watching them a couple times during the year, and I watched their early game that they played against Saginaw Valley. They played really, really well in that contest. And I watched a few other games that they played this year, and you can really see what this coaching staff has done with that program to not only to build confidence in that program, to put the building blocks in place, some young players at some key positions. And I think Northwood's a program that you're going to hear from in the years to come in the GMAC and possibly back again in the NCAA playoffs.
Of course, we had a chance following the game to catch up with the Bulldogs, the post-game press conference, part of the NCAA playoff format, with head coach Tony Annese alongside Stanley Lambert and Chase Carter, who had a big ball game for the Bulldogs at the quarterback position. Here's that post-game press conference following Saturday's 65-14 win over Northwood.
All right, welcome to the post-game press conference. We got head coach Tony Annese along with Stanley Lambert representing the defense and Chase Carter from the offense. Coach Annese, if we can get an opening statement from you today.
Yeah, obviously great performance from our team. Super excited that we were able to come out and perform. I don't know what it is about the playoffs, but we definitely seem to be uplifted when the playoffs start. And so very pleased about that. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Northwood University had an unbelievable year. I hear, and I'm a GLIAC coach, so just so you guys know, but I hear rumblings about the GLIAC crying that we were the only team in the field, and that GMAC teams don't deserve to be in the field, or at least 3 GMAC teams. And I'm going to say this. Northwood beat 2 GLIAC teams. They're 2-0 against the GLIAC. And one of them was our second place team. And so they earned it. They earned it. And so people have to look at that and say, man, I mean, what a job by Dusty and his staff, and what a great season they had. And they earned their way here. That's just the way it works in the playoffs. I know it's hard. I know it's challenging, but every game counts, So, I don't know. I guess it was maybe week 2 where Northwood beat Saginaw, but it happened, and it happened, early in the season, and that's the way it is. So credit to them, and Dusty's going to build that program, and they're going to keep on growing, and be a really good program for years to come.
Coach, on Wednesday in the media availability, you were asked about getting off to a faster start. How did you feel about that, and maybe what are some factors that played into that today? Chase.
What about Chase Carter? What? It's easy to get a fast start when Chase Carter, I see Sparky sitting over there, and Sparky said, "How fast is that kid?" And I said, "Well, he ran a 10.4 100 meters in high school. He holds our record for the 100 meters as a true freshman and the 200 too."
No, 4x1.
4x1. So he's got 2 records as a true freshman when he did that. Last year he didn't run track because he tore his labrum in his shoulder and is in rehab. But, wow, right? 15 carries for 152 yards, 11 for 21 throwing with, 1 bad interception that I'm mad at Brady about from a communication perspective. But all in all, unbelievable performance by him. I thought the defense played really hard and aggressive, and we just played a really good game. And yeah, it was a nice thing to have a fast start and then just keep on rolling.
And Chase, for you, talk about your mindset coming into the game and what you saw up front with your offensive line and kind of what you guys were able to establish up front that helped open things up for you in the running and passing games.
Yeah, credit to Northwood. We could tell on film they were a good team, and we would have to really practice hard and execute what we do in order to play well. And we were able to do that. Our guys, we watch film, we prepare really hard, we practice hard. So when we come out here, we know what we're doing, and it's just kind of on me as a quarterback to lead the team in that sense. And so everybody knows what they're doing. They have the talent to do it. I just got to put it together and then make plays when my number is called. So, as far as, the offensive line, like I said, after the Davenport game, I think they're the best in the country, and we can do anything behind them, passing or running the ball. And then for me, it's just, I played pretty well, but again, the interception, after our defense does a good job creating turnovers, I can't give the ball back. So that stuff we'll learn from, and we'll continue to get better throughout the playoffs. Take it 1 week at a time. Sorry.
And then Stanley, talk about what you guys were able to do on the defensive side. Your defensive line really did a good job. Even as you rotated guys in, you guys were able to do a good job on the line of scrimmage. What did you guys see coming into the game, and then how did it play out for you from your perspective?
The main thing is that our main point was just being physical up front. Usually, we're not really worried about nobody else, but just controlling and being as a unit, as a defense, and then that's what we just harp on every week about it, and it always starts in Tuesday practice. But our main thing going into this game was just being physical, being more physical than our opponent, and being more physical and playing as a unit. But that's what we harp on majority of the time.
Coach, you guys were able to generate pressure on crucial downs today, including 2 sacks on 4th down. What did you see from Northwood that led to that?
I just think, our defense played well. I think our coaches really were prepared for Northwood. And, it was one of those things where our defense just executed. We've been a good, I think we're number 1 in the nation in 3rd down conversion on offense, and we were 8 for 14. And we're like top 10 in the nation in 3rd down conversion defense, and we held them to 3 for 13, and 4th down conversion defense 0 for 3. So those are big, big situations. Again, they're a really good team, and their quarterback, we were really worried about him, and it's funny, his brother plays for us, and so it's a pretty cool situation. But they had a really good plan throughout the year, and were really tough to defend. So I was really proud of our defense.
Hey, Tony, could you talk about the defense? You had the interception for pick 6 and whatever. What was that? The backbreaker play maybe against Northwood? It's still early in the game, but obviously when defense gets plays like that, that's a backbreaker.
Yeah, that one felt really good. Watching Jalen do that. Jalen really hasn't played much in the last 6 weeks, you figure? 5-6 weeks.
Been a-
It's been a while since he's played. He's had an injury, and so happy to get him back out there. Such a key part of our defense, and so such a relief to have him be able to play. And I'm definitely going to check on with him later and see how he got through it. But if he got through it clean, and that injury is healed, I mean, that's going to help us. It's really going to help because he's a super player.
Chase, obviously, every team you would play, if you're able to, depending on how farther you're able to go, it's going to get tougher and tougher. So, what next week? What's the key to keeping the offense going, knowing that the teams are going to study as hard as they can and try to put a brick wall up there to stop you?
I think our O-line can go up against anybody. So, and we'll watch film. We'll create a good game plan for whoever we have to go against. But it's really just protecting the football. That's the biggest thing. We can really drive the field really well. We can run the ball. We have great receivers. We can pass the ball. We just got to protect the football. That's the biggest thing.
Get back to Tony. You're talking about Northwood. They're 60 miles down the road, and of course, everybody's looking for teams to play, and it's tough, and there's tough to get openings. Would you like to see some arrangements played so that they're a yearly non-league opponent?
Yeah, the GMAC, I think they got 9 conference games, Sparky. Is that right? 9? So they only have 2 non-conference games. One is going to be with Saginaw forever because they play for the Axe. And so they don't really have a lot of room to jiggle their schedule. So obviously I'd love it. I'd love to play, in-state teams as much as we could, but they were in our conference for a long time, and the GMAC pulled some Michigan schools them in Hillsdale way, and it's just the way things are. So just got to accept it for what it is.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our post-game press conference. Thank you, Coach, Chase, Stanley. We'll send it back to Rob.
And that was our post-game press conference following the big win over the Northwood Timberwolves in round 1. Heard from Stanley Lambert, Chase Carter. Chase has done a great job for the Bulldogs, of course, alongside head coach Tony Annese.
Yeah, I think, starting with Chase, I think, the Bulldogs have a lot of confidence in all their quarterbacks. And, obviously Wyatt Bowers had a tremendous season. And, but then Chase Carter, I think, is a guy that people may have forgotten about a little bit. And he's certainly shown that he can play this position really, really well. And then you got Carson Gulker. And so the Bulldogs certainly know they can always go back to Carson Gulker at quarterback. And you look at what Carson was doing before that injury. He certainly had some huge numbers at the quarterback position. So the Bulldogs, and you got LaShawn Mumfield as well, who came in, and he can certainly play this position as well. And so Bulldogs feel really good about the players that they have at quarterback. But obviously Chase Carter certainly had a big impact on the game, not only with the running that I think most people expect from him, but also, Rob, his ability to throw the downfield pass. And I think his composure when he has to check down and go to make his progression in terms of different receivers. We saw a little bit of everything from him. Very impressive.
Of course, you're forgetting one guy, Brady Rose.
Brady Rose, yes.
The Bulldogs doing so many different things offensively right now. When you look at Brady Rose, yes. Carson Gulker, and have really taken another step forward in terms of the offensive personnel.
There's no question. Brady Rose comes in, and we know the Bulldogs run that one play that the Bulldogs run, and they run it at some point almost every game, and somehow it always seems to work. And Rob, part of the reason, I said this to people, part of the reason it works is because you trust Brady Rose to make good decisions. You know that Brady's going to make good decisions. If he has to eat it, he has to eat it. If he has to run with it, he has to run with it. If he has to do whatever, he has to do whatever. But, in the other part of that press conference, it was great to get Stanley Lambert up there. I love what he was able to do defensively. I think he's known a lot as a pass rusher, and he certainly does that very well, but he also does a good job of containing the run. And so when you got him on one end and you got Tim Allen on the other end, and you got the guys that we have at tackle and what they do, particularly, Caleb Davis, Marquis Jones, and others, C.O. Saipia, they do a great job on that line, but it was great to see Stanley get some of that recognition.
And Sandy, you were talking about Brady Rose. I looked it up, 80% completion rate, 8 of 10 on the season, and certainly he's been very efficient throwing the football.
Yeah, that's a Hall of Fame pace right there. If you can keep that up and get the opportunities, he might be lobbying Coach Annese and Coach Annese on the offensive side of the ball to get some more opportunities. Now, but Brady is just a great team guy, and he's willing. We heard this from Carson Gulker as well. They're willing to do whatever it takes for the team to be successful. But yeah, certainly Brady has been just awesome. And there's no doubt that if he had a mind to do it, he could step in there and play quarterback too. So, I mean, just a great team guy to have.
All in all, a great win over the Northwood Timberwolves in round number 1. First ever play-up matchup between the two teams. And the Bulldogs did what they had to do, came out, really established the line of scrimmage, as we mentioned, and took control from the outset and got a chance to play a lot of guys, at least as many as you can play here in the playoffs with the 58-man rosters.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things, going back to the offensive line, it was great to see a little bit of our depth come back to help us again. And it allowed us to rotate some guys in and do so with confidence. And so I think the Bulldogs feel really good about that offensive line. We certainly have, had some injury issues that have challenged our depth a little bit, but at the same time, we've had other guys really step in and do a great job. And so I think you feel really good about what that group has been able to do. And when they control the line of scrimmage like that, and you can run the ball the way we were able to run the ball against Northwood, a really solid defensive team as well. I think that really says a lot about what the Bulldogs can do as they move forward.
Of course, we'll talk more about Ferris State and the win over Northwood. We'll look ahead to the Ashland matchup, and we'll check in on the Division II football playoff scoreboard. All of that and more when we return after this break here on the Bulldog Blitz Football Radio Show. And welcome back, everyone, to the Bulldog Blitz Football Radio Show, presented by Explore Big Rapids and Two Hats Ranch. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you, and joined by Brody Kaiser, of course, a member of our Bulldog Sports Network broadcast team. Brody, first of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, guys.
What have you seen from this team? Obviously, you were there up in the press box last week. What did you see from the Bulldogs that you really liked here in the opening round of the playoffs?
Well, I think, Chase kind of mentioned this in the post-game press conference too, just taking care of the football. When this team doesn't turn the ball over, it's going to be really hard to beat. I mean, we saw that the last couple of games of the regular season, the turnovers were sort of a problem. And going into the postseason, that game against Northwood, taking care of the ball and allowing the offense to do its thing was great to see. I know Chase was a little upset with one interception he threw. He mentioned, the defense does a good job getting a turnover. He gives it right back. Can't do that. But I thought overall, limiting turnovers, putting sustained drives together was a big positive for this group.
Of course, I know week in, week out, we see these guys. They don't really think about the win a whole lot after Saturday. It's right back to work and right back to business here, gearing up for the next game.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the mentality that Coach Anise has instilled in these guys. You look at Carson's media session from last week too, where he was talking about guys don't even think about the national championship from last year because they want to go win another one. And then that extends into the season as well. Last week's done. You won the game. Great. Celebrate it for a few minutes and move on. Let's go get another one. So I think that's just part of the culture of being a Bulldog. If you want to play Bulldog football, you got to understand that what's in the past is the past, and we're looking forward.
Looking back at that quarterback room, I want to go back to Chase Carter a little bit. Tell me about what you've seen from Chase, because you've been around the team a lot, during the spring and during the fall. And Chase, I think people forgot about how good this guy is and that he can throw the ball in addition to being a runner. What have you seen from him in terms of his growth?
He's fast. I think it's deceiving. People don't seem to expect how fast you watch him on film, and then all of a sudden it's like he's just past you, and you're like, well, I guess we should have prepared a little better for that. But no, I think his resiliency has been impressive. After an injury last season, missed a lot of the off season, didn't run track, which is tough because he's already a record holder for Ferris and track. So missing that part of it, missing the spring season, bouncing back, understanding in the fall that his role might be growing as he progresses through his career, but he still wasn't supposed to be the guy. He had a couple other players in front of him, and now all of a sudden he's just rolling with the punches. He's got to go out there and be the starter in a playoff game, which is not a position he probably even expected to be in. But it shows you the type of character he has. He's just a teammate, the ultimate teammate, willing to do whatever it takes to help his guys win. And
I think you got to love, you being having an opportunity to be at so many practices, the depth of this team has been really remarkable. And we've had some people banged up at a lot of different positions. Wyatt being banged up, and then Chase and others are able to step in. We've had some people shuffling in and out on the offensive line, at linebacker, and some other areas on the field. Just talk about this depth and what this program is built on, with so many guys ready to step in if needed.
Yeah, that's more of just the Bulldog mindset, I think. First of all, you got to give a shout out to the coaches, right, for doing a great job recruiting. You got 2-3 units that can go out there and compete at a national championship level. That's a luxury. But it's also about the actual players themselves. How difficult is it to know going into a season, okay, I got to have a couple injuries in front of me to even see the field, but stay with it, stay practicing, stay hungry, because your chance could come. And as you said, Sandy, we've seen it with injuries throughout this year that other guys have had to step up, specifically on the offensive line. Jalen Jones has missed time. We got some young players on the back end that have played, and I think that's a mentality thing. That shows a lot of mental fortitude and toughness to understand that your role might evolve throughout the season, to stay with it, stay hungry.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen Jones, and he's a guy that we see around the complex a lot, and he's got that smile on his face. But think about, what was your reaction, because he comes back into the lineup and it's like he was never out, and then he gets a big play in that game that was something that just really brought the fans to their feet.
Well, it was great, first of all, to see him back on the football field, because he's such a good player. I mean, he defends the pass very well, but he's a downhill tackler, physical player, really smart, cerebral player, which is great on the back end. You got to have a captain like that, a quarterback like that on the defensive side. But when the play first happened, I'm typing away or whatever on the computer. I look up and I see one of our guys with the ball. Just assume, it's 4. J-Pay, another pick 6. And then it was like, 42, that's Jalen. And no, it felt good because, like you said, we've seen him around the complex a lot with his involvement over the summer, and just a guy that's always around, not just the game of football, but around the world of Bulldog athletics. So it was a special moment for him, and I know the fans felt that too. That was a big time for the play as well.
Yeah. And then I want to talk about one more before I go back to Rob. One other guy that was in that press conference, and that's Stanley Lambert. And, obviously the Bulldogs, unfortunately losing Tyrone Fowler, who was having a phenomenal year before we lost him. But talk about what, Stanley on one end, Tim Allen on the other end, and those guys in the middle. But talk about, Stanley and what Tim were able to do, because they just seemed like they were living in that offensive backfield.
Yeah, and that's kind of been Tim Allen's motif since he took over the starting role. I can't remember, it was early in the postseason last year, late in the regular season, but he's just a guy he's a game breaker.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, great run defender, of course, but his ability to rush the passer is pretty impressive. And then you got Stanley, who's just, the motor is insane on that kid. Like, he just flies to the football, and they're fun to watch. Those two guys are game breakers. They wreak some serious havoc in the backfield. And if I was an opposing quarterback, man, I would be thinking 2-step drop and throw. I don't even know if I'd want to get to 3.
Well, that's what they were doing a lot too. I mean, they were spreading the field, and Rob and I were talking about it during the broadcast.
Of course, Brody, I know you were around the sports complex. A big win on Saturday, but you come back to the sports complex then, and volleyball gets a huge come-from-behind win over Grand Valley State, a big win in overtime for Bulldog hockey. Just maybe talk about the energy that was here in the building on Saturday.
Yeah, women's basketball on the road, too. We made it a perfect 4-0 on the day Saturday, which was great to see. And it was good to see the hockey team bounce back. I think their resiliency through the season has been on display many times, but to actually get the result in the win column is different than just showing resiliency, right? So you come back on Saturday, a couple weeks ago against Augustana, get the shutout after losing Friday, get the overtime victory this past weekend against Lake State after losing Friday. So the team's growing, they're learning, they're improving, and I think there's exciting things going forward. We've seen the flashes, right, from this squad. It's in there, and I think that they're getting close to achieving that on a more consistent basis.
What about that Bulldog Arena rocking, though, for the
Oh, my goodness. How did I not mention Bulldog volleyball, right? Reverse sweep over the biggest rival maybe in the program. I mean, that's as good as it gets, right? And that's why people come out to that arena, because special things happen in that place. And we saw it again this past weekend. That was an incredible win. Unfortunately, fall a little short in the tournament championship, but man, oh man, was that game on Saturday fun.
Of course, I know this Saturday, obviously, another playoff game here against Ashland. What are you hoping to see from the Bulldogs here coming up in round number 2?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound like a broken record, but the same thing. Like Chase had said in his postgame, if the Bulldogs play turnover-free football or win the turnover battle, they're going to be really, really hard to beat. There's just not many teams in the country that are built to compete with that line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball for Ferris State. So if they can limit the mistakes themselves, reduce some of the turnovers, and then also stay penalty, clean with penalties, which they have done a much better job of in recent weeks. I think this is a team that could absolutely go all the way. They've got the experience, they've got the coaching staff, they've got the system, and they've got the buy-in from the players, which is maybe the most important part. But just keeping the football, playing clean football is going to be key. And if they can do that, there's not many teams in the country, maybe no one that can play that level of football.
Of course, growing up here in the state of Michigan, just playing on Thanksgiving weekend, I know Sandy and I talked about it. I think 10 of the last 11 years, the Bulldogs have played here on Thanksgiving weekend, but you got the Lions. High school football, of course, is big here in the state of Michigan on Thanksgiving weekend. Just talk about what that means for the Bulldogs to still be playing, representing the state of Michigan.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? I mean, you think Thanksgiving, and immediately as a Michigan native, you go, okay, the Lions are playing. Well, the truth is that the Bulldogs are playing too, because that's been something that's become tradition for them. So, no, it's exciting. Always rooting for the Lions, of course, on Thanksgiving. It's fun to watch them play, but then you turn around 2 days later, you got to come back to Big Rapids and be ready to come out and support the Bulldogs. They're not, the Lions are not playing for their season as of right now. The Bulldogs are, so maybe an even more important game for them.
Well, Brody, thanks for being with us. Happy Thanksgiving, and of course, Bulldog hockey on a bye week. But I know you'll be back on the air next week when the Bulldogs travel out to Mankato.
Yeah, big series. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We'll be back with more of the Bulldog Blitz football radio show right after this break on the Bulldog Sports Network. And welcome back, everyone, to the Bulldog Blitz football radio show. Thanks to the Mecosta County Visitors Bureau. Explore Big Rapids at bigrapids.org for their sponsorship here of the Ferris State football playoff run. Big thanks as well to Fox Motors and Two Hats Ranch as we gear up for the second round of the NCAA Division II football playoffs, and we get a chance to look at the other matchups going on across the country and some scores from this past week. We'll start with those scores, Sandy, as the Bulldogs, of course, one of the first-round games, 16 first-round games, no byes here in Division II football, which the Bulldogs have kind of been used to that bye at times. It's helped them in these playoff runs, but everyone kind of having to go through it here this season.
Everybody's got the level playing field, so to speak, and certainly if you're one of those top 4 seeds, you like that bye. Most of the time, you like that bye to rest up a little bit, and then have your next opponent. They get some wear and tear. You hope that they have a really big slugfest with their first round opponent, and then hopefully they come in a little bit banged up. But no such luxury this year. Everybody just jumps right into it.
Of course, on the positive note, for those teams around the country, 4 more teams got added to the playoff field, which is the reason there are no byes here this year. As we go to the playoff scoreboard here from the NCAA this past week, Kutztown out in Super Region 1 was a 52-0 winner over Bentley. Bentley, one of those teams that got an automatic qualifier as part of the new rules.
Yep, and they got in, but unfortunately, they got to face essentially a top 3, top 4 team in the nation. And boy, I tell you what, Kutztown certainly came out strong in the first round of these playoffs.
Kutztown held on to the number 1 seed in that Super Region, but the other 3 top seeds in Super Region 1 all fell to the unseeded teams. Assumption over number 4, Indiana, Pennsylvania, 23-20, the final score in that ball game. Johnson C. Smith, the number 2 team, was upset by Frostburg State, a relative newcomer to Division II football, 21-7, and California, Pennsylvania knocks off Virginia Union, the 3 seed, 27-24.
Yeah, California over Virginia Union, not a big surprise to me, but Frostburg, I think, taking out Johnson C. Smith, I think really caught a lot of people off balance. Not that they didn't think Frostburg was good, but I think more so that people thought Johnson C. Smith was going to be much better than what they were able to perform, falling by 2 touchdowns.
Let's move to Super Region 2, where last week Albany State, the number 1 seed, they find a way to get it a win over Valdosta State, which was trying to pull off another upset, 35-30, the final score. The Blazers, the defending national runner-up after falling to Ferris State in the title game last year, are out of the D2 football playoffs.
And we kept saying, I mean, that, Valdosta is a dangerous team once they got off to that slow start, and then they started to kind of right the ship a little bit. And we saw coming down the stretch, and then obviously the big win coming down over West Florida. But they're a dangerous team, and Albany State probably feeling very fortunate right now.
Also in Super Region 2 in the first round, it was the 3rd seed Newberry, an impressive win, 45-24 over Kentucky State, which was making its first playoff appearance. Benedict stuns number 4 Wingate by a score of 25-24. That was a play at the end of the game that is getting all kinds of attention. I think Wingate was up 24-0. Benedict storms back and wins on the final play of the game.
Yeah, that's one that everybody is talking about, and certainly on our good friends at d2football.com, justifiably having that as pretty much their lead story. And that, what a great finish. I went back and watched it a few times. Just absolutely incredible finish at the end, but not just the finish at the end, but the way that Benedict was able to just roar back against Wingate.
West Florida, the other team that got a win in Super Region 2, the number 2 seed. The Argonauts defeat North Greenville 43-19, a commanding win in that matchup in Super Region 2. Moving on to our region, Super Region 3, of course, the Bulldogs, as we mentioned, a 65-14 winner over Northwood as the number 1 seed. The 2 seed, Findlay, falls to Minnesota State. The Mavericks win it 37-14, a commanding win down in Findlay, Ohio.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised about that. I think Minnesota State was playing really well, and I wondered about Findlay losing on the last play of the game to Tiffin at home. How would they respond against a Minnesota State team that certainly is a better team than maybe what some people thought coming in, but a big win for the Mavericks.
Of course, the Mavericks, you fail to remember, a lot of people do, that Minnesota State was in the national semifinals a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it's like, I think some people, kind of fell off with them a little bit. They had an early loss to a rival team in Duluth on a pretty much a walk-off field goal. So I think, for some people, their stock may have come down a little bit, but that's still a really good football team, and they showed it going on the road.
The 3rd seed in Super Region 3, Indianapolis, a 57-14 winner in a rematch over Truman State, a conference opponent out of the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Was all Greyhounds in that football game, led by a very talented offense.
Yeah, no big surprise there. I think UIndy's been really running that conference for years, and they really held steady in that contest against a Truman State team that is typically their closest competitor, but they were able to pretty much outrun them as they have been over the years. And so good win by UIndy.
And finally, here in Super Region 3, the team we'll see this week, the 4th seed Ashland at home defeats Minnesota Duluth 32-7. We talked a little bit about that game, but an impressive win for the Eagles in front of their home fans as they get ready to hit the road this weekend to face the Bulldogs.
Yeah, some pretty good numbers for Ashland to put up offensively against Duluth. And Duluth, I watched the early part of that game. I was just curious about it. And Duluth really ran the ball really well on that first drive and drove it all the way down, punched it in, and went up 7-0. But it was obviously, the score tells you that it was all Ashland from there on out. So Ashland got it done, obviously, in all 3 phases to keep Duluth at 7 points for the rest of that game. So a huge win for Ashland.
Let's move on to Super Region 4, the final region here in the country, where the number 1 seed Harding defeats Northwest Missouri State 38-16, a team that has given Harding some problems in the past, but Harding controls the line of scrimmage and wins that football game.
Yeah, I think I certainly am impressed with what Northwest has been able to do to come back over the course of this season and to get back closer to playing Northwest football. But Harding is Harding. I mean, they're really good, and I think Northwest is still on the come up here a little bit, but Harding's there, and they showed it again.
The number 4 seed in Super Region 4, Pittsburgh State, defeats Chadron State in the jungle, 21-17. Chadron State maybe needed a Danny Woodhead, of course, one of the famous guys from Chadron State, Don Beebe, but they gave Pittsburgh State a battle in that ball game. I think actually had a lead in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, I think that game was probably a little bit closer than what some people expected, but give Pittsburgh State credit. They're able to find a way, and certainly Chadron has a history of some great players, and maybe could have used one of them, to try to finish that game off on the road in the jungle. But congrats to Chadron State on a nice season, and certainly a competitive game in the first round of the playoffs. But certainly you favored Pittsburgh State, and they held true.
Of course, 2 other games in Super Region 4, and both of them were upsets, where the number 3 seed Colorado State Pueblo falls to Texas Permian Basin 37-24. Permian Basin, one of those teams that was kind of on the bubble whether they were going to get in or not, but they show they're capable. They go on the road and get a huge win out in Colorado.
Yeah, that's the bigger of the 2 surprises that you'll get to. You'll get to the second one right here. But, I think Permian Basin, as you mentioned, kind of slipped into the playoffs a little bit, and I think people thought that Pueblo was going to be a significant favorite in that contest, but give Permian Basin credit. Strong win on the road against Pueblo.
Of course, the final game was the late game on the day out on the Pacific Coast, where the number 2 seed Central Washington having a great year. Their lone loss, I think, coming to an FCS school, but they fall to Western Colorado. Western Colorado team that's kind of been up and down here as of late, but they pull off a 27-20 win.
Yeah, I think UT Permian Basin's win much more of a surprise, but that was certainly a Central Washington team I think people were starting to get really high on. It had been high early in the season, but people were feeling really good about what that team was going to be able to do. But they say, you got to give credit where credit is due. When you can go in and pull off that kind of an upset on the road, that's certainly an impressive win.
Let's get to the games this week here in round 2 of the NCAA Division II football playoffs. Super Region 1, Kutztown will play host to Assumption, and Frostburg State will get the home game as they entertain California, Pennsylvania out in Super Region 1.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I mean, I think they're all, because, and then there were 16. And so these are all going to be, I would expect, tough games right there. And just some really good matchups early. And that's going to be, Frostburg and Cal, that's pretty much a pick 'em right there between those two teams. I could see that going either way.
Also in Super Region 2 here this weekend, it'll be Albany State, the number 1 seed, playing host to Benedict. An interesting first matchup in the second round between those two teams. And the number 2 seed, West Florida, will get to play host to Newberry. Two familiar foes going to go at it down there in Florida.
Well, that's going to be a really good matchup right there between those two teams. And, I think West Florida is a team that people look at and they see a lot of offensive firepower. And Newberry is going to have the task of trying to slow that down. But that's another good matchup that I could see going either way, and that could be a really tight battle.
Of course, this week in Super Region 3, we mentioned the Bulldogs playing host to the 4 seed in Ashland. Also in Super Region 3, the other regional semifinal, it'll be the number 3 seed Indianapolis playing host to Minnesota State. So the Mavericks going on the road to Indy to try to get it back to the regional championship game.
Yeah, they're going to have to be road warriors again, and going to UIndy is always a challenge because UIndy, like a lot of teams, they play really well at home. But this is going to be an interesting test, I think, for UIndy playing against a team like Minnesota State that can be a really physical team, and it'll be interesting to see how UIndy responds to that. But UIndy certainly a lot of firepower offensively as well. It'll be interesting to see how that matchup plays out for UIndy. That's a big test coming into their place.
2 big games out in Super Region 4 to close out the Division II playoffs here in round number 2. And out in Super Region 4, you start with Harding, and maybe their toughest challenge here of the season so far as they play host to the 4 seed Pittsburgh State, a team we saw in the season opener, and a team that's got better and better and has riding right now, I think, a 10-game winning streak. Of course, last year it was all Harding, 48-3 in that matchup.
Yeah, I was not comfortable picking Northwest over Harding. I'm not really comfortable picking Pittsburgh State over Harding either. I'm going to ride with Harding through this one, but I will say Pittsburgh State has an opportunity. I don't think it'll be anything like what happened last year. I think you'll see Pittsburgh State with a much more competitive game result. However, going down to Searcy, that is a tough place to play. They draw well. Their fans are right there on top of you. And Harding, like a lot of teams, they play exceptionally well at home. But I would definitely favor Harding, but could be an interesting game.
Of course, then the final game out in Super Region 4, the two teams that both pulled off upsets last week, Texas Permian Basin, going on the road, I believe, to Western Colorado, having to deal not only with Western Colorado, but also the elevation out there in Gunnison.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a significant issue right there. And you're probably more familiar with it than I am, but that's going to be, Permian Basin coming in, certainly pulling off an upset in the first round, and now they get a chance to go play at Western Colorado. And so, I think they've shown that they can battle that a little bit, but, Western Colorado, I think, is going to be a bit of a challenge right there, but I think Permian Basin is hoping they can pull a second upset.
Yeah, of course, Western Colorado, I had a chance to go there when I was at Nebraska Kearney. It's been so long ago, 25 plus years ago. It was known as Western State then, and I don't think they had a very good football team, which obviously they do right now.
Yeah, so things have changed there in Western State. Thank you. I couldn't remember what had happened before, but yeah, thanks for jogging my memory there a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be a tall test for Permian Basin, but they got to be feeling pretty good after that first round upset. So I think Western Colorado is certainly going to need to be on upset alert.
Texas Permian Basin coming off their first ever playoff win this past weekend. So that's a look at the matchups going on in Division II football here in round number 2. Of course, the winners of these games will go on to the regional championship game in each respective region. Those games scheduled to be played next Saturday, a week from Saturday on December the 6th. Following that game, you'll have 4 winners left, and they'll pick 2 of the teams to host the national semifinals on December the 13th before the title game in McKinney, Texas.
Yeah, you could see the field just paring down right there. We just cut it in half, and we're going to cut it in half again. And so we're getting closer and closer. And obviously, every game, every possession, every quarter, every minute going to be really precious right now. And, in our building right now, or maybe working their way out to the practice field, our guys are preparing. But you know what? So is everybody else across the country. There are 15 other teams across the country that are preparing, just like the Bulldogs, to try to see if they can advance to that next round.
Should be an exciting week of Division II football here in round 2 of the D2 football playoffs. We'll take a quick break. Back with more of the Bulldog Blitz football radio show presented by Explore Big Rapids and Two Hats Ranch right after this timeout on the Bulldog Sports Network. And welcome back, everyone, to our final segment here on the Bulldog Blitz Football Radio Show, presented by Two Hats Ranch. Thanks as well to our playoff sponsor, Explore Big Rapids, and the Mecosta County Visitors Bureau, along with Fox Motors of Cadillac and Reed City. Rob Bentley and Sandy Golston with you as we get set for playoff football again on Thanksgiving weekend, round 2 this Saturday, 1 o'clock kickoff at Top Taggart Field between the Bulldogs and the Ashland Eagles. We'll have all the coverage for you, of course, right here on Sunny 97.3, online on the Bulldog Sports Network at FerrisStateBulldogs.com. Also in the Flint area on Metro Flint News Talk Radio. We'll have 96.1 The Game in Grand Rapids carrying the broadcast this Saturday as well. And, of course, the video stream, part of the NCAA streaming package on ESPN+. So a lot of different ways in which to follow the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and it's been exciting. And just, hearing the chatter and social media, a lot of people certainly are tuning in and feeling really excited. It's playoff football time. And so that gets the energy flowing for not only for us, but, also for the players and the coaches, but also our fans. And so it's really fun for the fans to be able to have so many different ways to tune into the broadcast. And, I think I'm sure you did too. And just had a lot of people kind of blowing us up and chatting with us while we were on the air, and just because they're just so excited. And of course, after the game as well. So a lot of different ways to view or listen to the Bulldogs. And we're certainly glad to have people along for the ride.
Of course, got to give a big thank you to Steve Masters at Sunny 97.3 for not only carrying the broadcast, but also coordinating our entire Bulldog Sports Network coverage. Of course, the Ferris State Television and Digital Media Production Program as well did an excellent job on that first playoff game on ESPN+.
Yeah, what a showcase, not only for the great work that Steve does behind the scenes, but also for our television digital media production students, our faculty, putting on just a first-class product that people had a chance to see on ESPN+. And so that's really exciting. And again, that's and I said it on the air, but this is a classroom for our TDMP students, and they really are showing what they can do now and what they're going to be able to do in the future.
Of course, Ferris State football making its nation-leading 11th consecutive trip here to the NCAA Division II football playoffs. Got to give a shout-out to Bulldog Volleyball. They earned an NCAA tournament bid on Monday night. They're 14th in a row, 29th in school history under head coach Tia Brenda Wilhelm.
Yeah, how exciting was that? And, for the players to get that announcement there and get a little food and a little drink and have an opportunity to sit there and watch the show and, to see the Bulldogs kind of hold steady, in terms of where they were seated. And now they know the path that's ahead for them in the NCAA playoffs. And I know they're excited. They were, working hard in practice before sitting down and watching the show. And they'll be back in there, I'm sure, getting ready for what's going to be a really strong Midwest regional field.
Of course, they will be off and start NCAA tournament play on December the 4th against Quincy out in St. Louis, Missouri. Bulldog hockey, a big 4-3 win in overtime over Lake Superior on Saturday night. They're off this week as well. They'll be back in action next week on the 5th and the 6th at Minnesota State Mankato. Could have a Ferris State, Minnesota State weekend next week looking ahead if the Bulldogs can get a win over Ashland. And, of course, Minnesota State will have their hands full with Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think couple of fan bases that could be stretched thin, but certainly some football between now and then. But really exciting for hockey, coming off a really good performance against Lake Superior State in that second game and kind of had the building rocking there in overtime. And so that's exciting, and they get a chance to kind of catch their breath this week, enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday, and then get back to work. It's going to be a challenging road trip. It's going to kick off a really challenging month of December for the Bulldog hockey team.
Of course, our final look around Ferris State athletics. Can't forget about Bulldog basketball. We're recording the show a little bit in advance with the Thanksgiving holiday, so not airing live right here on Wednesday night, but we did have Bulldog basketball this afternoon. Wednesday afternoon as the Bulldog women, of course, take on Hillsdale, the men against Kuiper. We'll be back on the air Saturday night, though, after Bulldog football for another men's basketball game against Michigan Dearborn at 7 o'clock with pregame coverage right here on Sunny 97.3 at 6:30.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think, obviously the women's team off to a good start, entering the national rankings at 24th, and I think the ratings are going to come out pretty soon for this week, and so excited to see where the Bulldog women's basketball team. Can't imagine they're going to take a step backwards. So I look forward to seeing that. And it's going to be exciting to see the men's basketball team finally get a chance to play at home, and a couple of games where I think, the Bulldogs are going to be looking to get that good feeling, get that winning feeling. And I know it's going to be exciting for Coach Fodness and his team to be at home and to have a couple of games over the Thanksgiving holiday.
Of course, they will start GLIAC play as well next week on the road at Purdue Northwest and at Wayne State. We'll have pregame coverage for you on Saturday beginning at noon right here on the Bulldog Sports Network. We'll hear from Coach Anise along with some Bulldog players. Of course, as we count it down to kickoff, 1:02 p.m. official kickoff time on Saturday. Tickets on sale at ferrisstatebulldogs.com/tickets. Hopefully the weather holds off. Expecting maybe a little bit of snow, but hopefully that stays away. And in any case, hopefully we have some good football playoff weather.
Yeah, I think we're hoping for better playoff weather, but again, it is the playoffs, and it's an opportunity to move a step closer. You hope to being able to play for that ultimate prize, and so it's one step at a time for the Bulldogs, and they're certainly hoping for good weather. But I think they have a team that tends to be built for good weather and built for bad weather, and so hopefully we'll be able to adjust to whatever it is and be able to be successful.
Of course, the Bulldogs taking on Ashland University, a team they know very well. And you can't look ahead here at this stage of the game. You really got to focus and lock in on the given opponent. Ashland, a team that's very capable coming here to face the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Ashland's is a scary team in a lot of ways, and a team that we've had a lot of respect for over the years, whether we've played them here in Big Rapids or we've made the trip down to Ashland, Ohio to play them. And I think that Ferris State-Ashland game, over the years, whether it was in the GLIAC or after they left the GLIAC for the GMAC, we had some good battles with them. And so there's certainly a lot of respect between these two programs.
Of course, the Bulldogs, if you read the game notes, have had an incredible regular season record over the last decade. You look at that, and I think the only team maybe outside of Grand Valley State that is a Division II team, you had the Montana game as well in there a few years ago, but the only other team that's really beat the Bulldogs has been Ashland.
Yeah, and certainly they put up some, and a lot of it when Ashland did have that success, Rob, they were very good defensively, and they're good defensively this year once again. And so I would expect, and they're very, very well coached program, and they take a lot of pride in what they do with their program, like Ferris State does. And so it's going to be two programs with strong histories clashing in Big Rapids at Top Tiger Field.
Of course, a lot of respect for Ashland University on the Ferris State side, and I know vice versa. And Al King, former sports information director, now the athletic director there, a good friend of mine, Dusty Sloan, the SID, a lot of people that are really passionate about Ashland University, and the same goes true with Ferris State.
Yeah, it's been first class when we've been down there, and vice versa. We had that environment where we've welcomed them, treated them well, and so it's been really mutual. And then the best thing is on the field, both programs have a really great product that they put in front of their fans, and so it's really great to see these two teams in the playoffs being able to play, and with the reshuffling of the regions, it sets up this opportunity for us to kind of renew that rivalry with Northwood last week, and now renew this rivalry with Ashland, but in the playoffs with higher stakes.
Of course, the Bulldogs have won 26 games in a row. They'll be looking for win number 27 in a row overall this week. Also looking for their 27th straight home win at Top Tiger Field. I know Coach Anise likes to remind me we're pretty good on the road as well, but the Bulldogs certainly have used the home field advantage or home field to their advantage, especially here in the Division II playoffs in recent years.
Yeah, if you're going to play in some of the big games that Ferris State's been able to play in over the last 4+ seasons, you got to be able to win not only at home, but you got to be able to win on the road. And so I think the Bulldogs have shown an ability to play in whatever environment there, whether it's on the road, whether it's at home, or whether it's at a neutral site. But it's really fun to play at home because I think you feel the energy the crowd when you're at home, and especially when we have students in the student section, and then of course you got the marching band and what they've been able to add, cheer stunt, what they've been able to add in terms of not only bringing great performances to complement the game, but also bringing their fans into the stadium and just help create an even greater atmosphere.
Of course, we hope Bulldog fans show up on Saturday here for this playoff matchup. Not only come, but bring your friends, bring your turkey, whatever you want to bring. Just be there at Top Taggart Field on Saturday.
Exactly. I mean, you're gonna get enough for your family at home, and maybe it's time for you to get outside a little bit and come to Bulldog football. And if you need to separate from the family a little bit, plenty of space in the stadium. You can still watch the game and still have family nearby. So we're excited. Seriously, we are excited about hopefully having a lot of fans come out, particularly from our community to support, and maybe some students that are sticking around over the holiday break, or maybe coming back early over the holiday break to join us, and maybe some alums to come back and have an opportunity after some turkey and watching the Lions hopefully get a win to be able to check out some Bulldog playoff football.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the Bulldog Blitz football radio show. Big thanks to the Mecosta County Visitors Bureau and Explore Big Rapids for their support here of this playoff run. Thanks as well to Two Hats Ranch, along with Fox Motors of Cadillac and Reed City. Ferris State and Ashland this Saturday, 1 p.m. at Top Taggart Field. For Sandy Golston, I'm Rob Bentley. Have a great weekend, everyone, and thanks for tuning in right here on the Bulldog Sports Network in sunny 97.3.